What were the Oakville Blobs made of? Was it all part of a government experiment? Did the inhabitants of Oakville, Washington make the whole story up? You can find out the answers to these questions on this episode of Unsolved Mysteries. Solved! Welcome to the podcast, everybody. It's another glorious, mysterious Thursday. And that means we've got a brand new mystery for you. I am Chad Kimmons, PhD in solving mystery, as usual. I've not lost my PhD. It has not been revoked. I think there was one mystery that we couldn't solve a while back. You get 3 strikes on that kind of thing, and then they revoke your PhD. So, here's hoping we can solve this one. If you've never listened to the podcast before, why? What have you been doing with your life, first off? And secondly, the way it works is every week we bring you a brand new unsolved or unexplained mystery. We talk about it, discuss the facts, kind of live inside of it for a bit, and then we solve it. Today, my guest host, still filling in for Colt, is none other than the amazing Vince King. Vince, hey. Good to have you back.
Hey, how's it going?
What was the title? It's been so long since you've been on. What was the title that you gave yourself? Multimedia czar or something like that?
Yeah, multimedia creator. We only recently, Elijah Gabriel and I only recently decided that that's what we'll call ourselves as far as doing different little things. I also do novel writing, and I have my own interview podcast, my own audio dramas, and trying slowly to dabble in doing what little what little blogging, just other little things I do online. Right. I'm all deep into the creation.
You're a pretty integral part of Emperor Pigs too, aren't you?
Yeah. I've become really close to the girls and guys of that company, and pretty much guaranteed. I mean, I'm some things I can't say, but I'm on the show a lot. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever been on that show, but I wrote a sketch for them. That
it was really funny too.
Yeah, so apparently I'm part of the family now. So Vince, what do you know about the case of the Oakville Blobs?
I'm gonna be honest. I've never heard this before. I'm not gonna lie. I was when you said blobs, I'm trying to think of anything sci-fi that I could think of. None of this I've never ever in my life heard of this.
Okay, it's a good one. It's really good. I don't want to oversell it, but it's really good. So let's go ahead and just jump right in here. So for today's mystery, we're going to the town of Oakville, Washington, about 50 miles inland from the Pacific coast. It's August 7th, 1994, around 3 in the morning, and it starts to rain. Now, rain happens all the time, Washington State. I think there are jokes made all the time that, it's always raining in Seattle. Mm-hmm. This rain was like no other, because when the rain began to fall, it was blanketing a 20 square mile area. And again, though that is very common there, residents began to note that it wasn't water, but it was like a strange, almost gelatinous substance that they had never seen before. When it first began, Officer David Lacey was on patrol with a civilian friend of his, and he said, and this is a quote, I don't know how to do a Seattle accent. Do they have accents in Seattle?
I couldn't tell you. I don't think so. Maybe. I mean, I have family and friends up in Washington, and I've never been in my life.
Washington, not Seattle. Mm-hmm. I equate Seattle to Washington.
it's
like people. It's like people who equate New York City to New York State. Regardless, he said, we turned on our windshield wipers, and it just started smearing to the point that we could almost not see. And we both looked at each other and said, geez, this isn't right. I mean, we're out in the middle of nowhere, basically, and where did this come from? Now, this was obscuring the windshield so bad that it forced him to pull into a gas station to try and clean it manually after he put on a pair of latex gloves for safety, because, again, don't know what the hell this is. And he said, the substance was very mushy. It's almost like if you had Jell-O in your hand and you could pretty much squish it through your fingers. Mm-hmm. We did have some bells go off in our heads that basically said that this isn't right. This isn't normal. So far, I mean, we're only, 2-3 minutes in? This is already pretty awesome to me. When I was reading about this, I was just like, man, this is cool. I wonder what it is. Because, to this day, nobody knows what it is. And we'll get to that. Another person, local resident Dottie Hearn, stepped outside after it had stopped and noticed that these gelatinous globs were everywhere. And at first, she said it looked like hailstones to her, But when she touched it, she noticed that, again, it had an odd gelatinous texture. Now, by the afternoon that day, David, Dottie, and various other residents had become mysteriously and violently ill. They described having difficulty breathing, extreme vertigo, blurred vision, and an increasing sense of nausea. Beverly Roberts, another resident, said that everyone in town contracted this weird flu-like illness that lasted 2 to 3 months, and additionally there were several cats and dogs that came into contact with the substance, and they died. Yeah. So, right off the bat, what are you thinking here? What are your thoughts?
Well, I do want to. Is there a Is there a plant nearby, like a form of a chemical plant, like I would not like a dry camp. I guess any form of chemical plant nearby, or in I hate to be cliche, like a nuclear plant of a sort near.
No, not that I know of. I feel like if there had been, that would have been one of the theories, but that was not one of the theories as to what it is, which we'll get to when we get to that part. So yeah, there's no chemical plants. When you said plant, I was thinking where's he going with this? Like aloe vera?
That's my first idea.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, an hour after first noticing her symptoms, Dottie was found sprawled on her bathroom floor, conscious but very weak. Her daughter, Sunny Barclift, described her as feeling cold and sweat-drenched and being very pale. She was quickly moved to a hospital where she stayed for 3 days and was diagnosed with a severe inner ear infection. Not really sure what that has to do with the rest of it. Not sure, how that ties into, the illness that everybody came down with, Maybe that was just part of it. But as she was being moved, Sunny remembered the odd rain and thinking that there might be a connection to her mother's illness. So she collected a sample and sent it to the hospital, where a lab technician examined it and found that it contained human white blood cells, but couldn't identify what it was or how it came from the sky. At this point, what is happening? There's this gelatinous stuff falling from the sky. It only fell in a 20 square mile area, and it's got human white blood cells in it. This case is so baffling. I don't have words, clearly. So since she couldn't identify it, she sent the sample to the Washington State Department of Health for further study, where Mike McDowell, a microbiologist at the department, noted that it was teeming with 2 species of bacteria, one which lives in the human digestive system, and over a period of 3 weeks, the gelatinous substance fell a total of 5 more times. So again, what the is happening? What is going on in Washington State, man? Now, I did do a little bit of research on this, and I couldn't find any other instances of this. Do you have any other thoughts at this point before we continue?
Okay, so it's a wild theory, but did you see the movie Shoot 'Em Up?
Yes, I think so. That was with Clive Owen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember the scene where he was in the plane and they got out and he was shooting everybody in the sky as he was coming down?
No, because I believe I was either high or drunk when I was watching it. I mean, what? No, I've never done drugs, in case my mother is listening to this. Yeah, I watched it with a friend, and I think I was drunk that night. So, I vaguely remember. The thing I remember most about that movie was the rant that he goes on about turn signals.
Yes, dude, that's all me. Oh, dude, exactly how I feel in life.
It felt very much like the writer or a producer or a director or somebody has that pet peeve and was like, you know what? I'm going to use this movie as a platform to tell people to use their goddamn turn signals.
And I cannot love them any more than I already do for that.
But no, I don't remember that part actually.
But so there's a scene in the middle of the movie, spoilers, but whatever. It's go watch the
It's
movie.
like a 5 or 6 year old movie.
Yeah.
Statute of limitations on spoilers is done.
So he jumps out of the plane and he's shooting everybody on the way down out of the plane, and I mean like everybody. And the whole time they just show scenes of bodies just dropping from the sky. Now, what if? Not saying Clive Owen was killing people and making them draw weird little blood cell things, but what if we have a thing like that where somebody is skydiving or something goes wrong in the sky, as far as with humans, obviously. Whether somebody, the only thing that would throw my theory off is if it's a human body and say it gets, I don't know, say somehow or another it goes into the blades of a airplane propeller or something. But that wouldn't make sense, because then where were the blood and the other body parts that would be coming down from the sky?
So your theory was people skydiving that got chopped to bits by airplane propellers, but then you immediately contradicted your theory with, but where'd the rest of the body go?
Yeah, it wasn't a well planned out thought, but it was a funny idea.
Okay, I mean,
the white blood cells thing is it throws everything for a loop.
I know that's that's the part that is so strange about it, is why are there human white blood cells in this? Because I think it's it might be in my notes here.
I have one other theory, but I think I'm going to save it for the end because it's the most fucked up one.
Okay. What was I saying? Yeah, the white blood cells, that was what throws everybody off, is because there are a bunch of theories about what this might be, but then it all comes back around to why the is there human DNA in this shit? Well, anyway, because of Mike's findings, Mike McDowell, the guy, the Washington State Department of Health, it was initially speculated to be human waste from an airplane, because they do dump the waste sometimes, like feces and stuff. But
wouldn't they be able to tell if it's feces though?
Well, the Federal Aviation Administration regulations require that waste from an airplane must be dyed blue, and this was perfectly clear. And regulations forbid pilots from releasing this, what they call it blue ice, in mid-flight. Now, nearly a year after Dottie fell ill, she mailed a sample that she had stored in her freezer to Amtest Laboratories, a private research lab. There, while they were analyzing it, a man named Tim Davis, another microbiologist, believed he saw an I'm going to look, this word, I need to know how to pronounce it. We'll just edit this part out and post using industry terms. I keep having to look back at my notes to figure out how to spell it.
It happens.
So yeah, Tim Davis, another microbiologist, believed he saw an eukaryotic cell, which is a complex nucleus-containing cell that is present in most living creatures. This means that whatever this substance was, it either is or had been alive at some point in time. So, one theory as to the origins of this stuff was that one of the military's naval bombing runs at sea had accidentally destroyed a school of jellyfish, which sent their pieces flying into the atmosphere, where they settled in Oakville, 50 miles inland. And this is called star jelly, it's a real thing, I guess. When jellyfish die, sometimes they get absorbed into the atmosphere through, not photosynthesis. What is it called? The water cycle.
Oh, wait.
Evaporation, or whatever the it's called. When it goes up in the air and forms clouds. Sometimes, then when it rains, the pieces of the jellyfish will come down with the rain, and they call it star jelly.
Why would it have human? That'd be the only other.
Going back to why are there human white blood cells in this if it's jellyfish? The distance that the parts would have traveled, the number of times it fell, and the lack of any kind of rotting smell at all put this theory in doubt to most people. And the Air Force actually confirmed that they were doing practice bombing runs over the Pacific Ocean in August of 1994, but they deny any knowledge of the substance or any involvement in creating or dispersing it. Oakville residents were a little skeptical of this, because prior to this happening, many had noticed a significant, like almost daily amount of slow-moving military aircraft in the skies above the town. And some people believe that Oakville was the site of a military experiment that was designed to test a new biological weapon or to test the possible damage that a biological attack on U.S. soil could do. But like, there are no samples of the substance that exists today. Some of the more far-out theories, like that is the prominent theory, is that it was or the two most prominent, the human waste from an airplane, and what was the other one? Oh, the Air Force doing bombing runs. Some more out there theories are aliens. Like, I didn't put a lot of this stuff in my notes. I just made little, like, make sure you mention this, because again, I made these notes like a month ago, but we haven't had time to record. So I have no idea what this means, but one of them just says aliens, and I do remember that that was a huge one, because that's always a theory in anything mysterious, is aliens.
It makes sense. Especially in something like that.
Yeah.
But then again, when you go, you're like, so that means aliens are us because they would have our white cells? Or that would also then
you know, if this was aliens, maybe they abducted people and then sent them back down to Earth, and their transporter beam screwed up, you know? Another theory that I vaguely remember is that there are people who honestly believe that there are jellyfish that live in the atmosphere, and that these blobs, this gelatinous rain, was like an airplane hit one of them, like a school of jellyfish. Kind of like what you were saying, but with jellyfish. That's a real dumb theory, because I feel like we would have discovered these sky jellyfish at some point.
Right.
Oh, but the government's covering it up. I doubt it.
Civilians have
That's
planes.
true. That is true.
Unless they're just like the Loch Ness monster of the sky, and everyone swears they saw them, but no one actually ever has proof.
Right. I don't know of any sightings. Like, I didn't look too far into that one. But I don't know of any sightings of sky jellyfish, to be honest. Now, Sunny Barclift herself, remember, was Dottie's daughter, said that some information has come to light on the internet recently. And when I say recently, the article that I got this from was from late last year. But there's some information that has come to light on the internet recently that makes her believe that the blobs were man-made and meant to be used as a military experiment. I could not find the information that she was talking about, and they didn't mention exactly what the information was in the article. But apparently, someone who was very close to it believes that it was some kind of military experiment, which, as we know from, you know, like, what was it, back in the 70s when they were getting black people hooked on cocaine or whatever? Like, we do know that the government does experiment on its own citizens, just covertly. But, okay, so you said that you had a really f***ed up theory that you wanted to save.
I have a really Vincent theory.
I want you to flesh this out for me.
All right, before you, now I know when I start it, you're automatically going to start coming up with all sorts of defenses about it. But hear me out, okay?
Until you're done.
I have been Googling toward the end of this what sets of theories to help back me up on this. Okay. All right. So you said that people, I do just remember, said that people got sick and died, right? Or just got sick in general from it.
Most of the town, I think it was. Basically, anybody who came into contact with it got really sick, and like they were suffering headaches and nausea and all kinds of stuff, and lasted for about 3 months. And then any cats and dogs that came into contact with the stuff actually died. So
okay, so it's gonna make it a little of a stretched out theory, but the idea is that someone was in the sky and they were in the, what do you call it, I think it's called the Mile High Club. Yeah. And they decided to have sex on the plane.
Okay.
And the guy has to and so he's like, oh no, where am I gonna do it at? And she's like, well, not on me. So he does it in the toilet.
Okay.
But this guy was obviously high, and
wait, what?
probably had a drink or two. He
Do you have to be high to have sex in an airplane bathroom? Is
no, but for my theory to work,
so he doesn't have to be high. It's just for the theory to work, he's got to be high.
So there's a condition, and I'm gonna fuck up the name, but pyospermia. I think I fucked it up, but it says it's pyospermia, usually referred as leukocytospermia, is a condition in which there are unusually high number of white blood cells in semen, which weakens the sperm and can damage its genetic material. What causes pyospermia? The last thing it says, the use of tobacco, marijuana, and alcohol.
Okay, hold on.
And funny enough, infrequent ejaculation. What?
I missed something. What this disease does what to you?
I don't think it's the disease, from what I understand, because they say that one of the things that can cause it is frequent ejaculation, use of tobacco, marijuana, alcohol, infection, inflammation, autoimmune conditions, urethra stricture, genital infections. I think it's like one of those things where like it just happens every now and then from ups. Because I mean, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, so I can't say if it's like
it almost
permanent.
Sounds like herpes or something, where it's like, yeah, it's manageable, but every now and then it flares up, and when it does, like.
Eliminating white blood cells from the semen can improve the function of sperm and improve pregnancy rates. The things that men could do to try to eliminate excess white blood cells from semen include stop use of tobacco, avoiding any use of alcohol, stop using marijuana, and more frequent ejaculation. Okay, so you're supposed to jack off more? I thought I read that if you jack off more, that's what it gets. Man,
this episode has gone off the rails so fast.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so it's caused by you have to jack off. If we're not jacking off,
we went from Oakville Blobs to we're gonna make a porn in like an instant. I feel like.
Look, this is what happens. Okay,
I'm still waiting for you to finish your theory. It just
so he goes in the toilet. He goes in the toilet, and it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot, and she's thankful that he didn't come on him, right?
Come on her.
So by that time, someone has already shit, and I mean, the whole toilet's full, right? So then they have to dump, right? And kind of tack on to your theory from that, where they're supposed to dye the shit blue, but it may not have worked, and if it did, it may have like really gone really weird with the like may not work the way they think, so it gets it all gel-like, and so it starts raining from the sky. But with the chemicals in it, instead of turning it blue, it can start making people sick. So that would explain when people get touched and I can't explain why the animals. I'm gonna just assume just because I guess the chemicals mixed in with this guy's sperm, they start raining from the sky. That's my theory. Long story short, it's semen coming from the sky by somebody who didn't want to come on her.
I don't even know where to start with this. Like I was kind of with you for a minute. Like I was wondering how you were going to because I mean, it happened 6 times over the course of like 4 weeks. First off, so is the same guy like? Are they just taking a flight?
Oh,
like
shit.
they're just going back and forth. So that's number 1. 2.
Shit.
So are we in this scenario? Are we assuming that the pilots ignored all regulations and dumped the waste while they were in mid-flight?
My theory fell apart
Your
right there.
theory fell apart when you started putting it together. So, and then 3, there was the blue, remember? They mix it with a blue chemical. Right. So how do you explain?
Right, but it didn't. So my thing is, by dumb luck, it didn't work too well with this guy's gel.
Okay.
And so instead of turning it blue, it made it more gel-like, and it could make people sick.
Okay.
From the mixture of this guy's semen and the blue.
I feel like you just okay. Oh well, because
I don't know
I mean, there'd be white blood cells probably in feces, so the whole thing you can just cut that out. Because I know why you were using sperm and like an ejaculate as the base of this, and it's because of the whole white blood cell thing. But there'd be white blood cells in feces probably too. So
fair point.
The ejaculate is unnecessary in this theory.
Well, shit. I didn't say I was a doctor.
I can't remember. There was one more thing that I took issue with, and I don't remember what it was. If I remember, I'll come back to it later. I mean, that's certainly a theory that you just said. Honestly, I think that it might have been. Let me rephrase. I know that it was a mixture of. Man, there are so many of these that end with me just accusing the government of doing things. Like, I'm going to disappear. One of these days, I'm just going to disappear, and the podcast is just going to stop coming out. Or like one day, some Thursday, it comes out, and it's just a whole new, like 2 new people that you've never heard before, and they're like, "Yeah, we totally love the government. We are definitely Chad and Colt, and we did not mean to say any of those things that we said before." So if I ever go back on any of these listeners, just know I have been replaced by a clone, or I feel like this podcast is turning into a conspiracy theory podcast really quickly, like as we run out of mysteries to solve. Anyway, okay. So going back to, I'm getting way off track. It was jellyfish, but it was also a biological weapon. Now, don't ask me why the government did this, but they injected the jellyfish with some kind of biological weapon and then mushed them up and dropped them from planes that have been stealthed. Because, because this fell, remember, it fell at 3 a.m., so it's dark. There are stealth bombers that cannot be detected. So yeah, they dropped them from stealth bombers at 3 a.m. on this little tiny unassuming town to see how well their biological weapon would work. And the reason it was gelatinous is because it was jellyfish, because they wanted people to believe the cover story of the bombing runs that were going on out in the Pacific Ocean and the jellyfish falling from the sky because of that. And with that being said, I need to go find my tinfoil hat.
Okay, I have one thing to add to your theory, I feel like.
It's not a theory. I'm a PhD. I know what I'm talking about. This is what happened. I have documents that I cannot release because if I do, I will disappear. Sorry, go ahead.
So that I don't think they're in America. I think they're over in Europe. But there's that special kind of jellyfish. I know you know what I'm talking about. They're really I think they're deadly.
Well, I mean, all jellyfish are deadly if you don't get the wounds treated, I think.
Yeah, but this one's got like a war name to it. Man of war. What if it's, instead of use just basic jellyfish, they were like, what happens if we try to make a weaponize out of man of war? And so I think they would try to use that.
Well, I mean,
it's Portuguese.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, my documents don't say what kind of jellyfish it was. It just says it was jellyfish. So perhaps it was a man of war, or they were man of war. Mm-hmm. Just to clarify, here is what happened. The government was doing all kinds of weird biological weapons tests. They chose Oakville because it's a tiny, unassuming town near the ocean. And what they did is they scooped up a bunch of man of war and mixing with their venom and this biological weapon, they mushed them up and dumped them from stealthed bombers at night to see two things: to see how well it worked, and to see how a small town in the U.S. would react to this, to see if they could handle it. And they used the bombing runs that had happened like a week prior as cover, and that's why they also used the jellyfish, is that was part of the cover, so they could be like, oh yeah, we were doing bombing runs. We don't know that there were jellyfish that fell from the sky, but maybe. Womp womp. I shouldn't have said womp womp. I should have just. I'm gonna edit that out and just put the sound in. Yeah. So that's another mystery in the books. We did it. I don't have 2 strikes on my PhD now. Still got the one. It'll fall off in like 6 months. It's like a write-up at your job, Like, if you go so long without getting another write-up, they eventually fall off. Anything else to add about this particular mystery, Vince?
I mean, what a I mean, I feel sorry for the cop and shit. Like, have to be the one to deal like report. Guys, there's something that looks like goo falling from. I mean, can you imagine being that guy having to tell, and the people just snickering him on the comms like, "Did you just say goo? This guy's got goo in his car."
Yeah, almost like I was gonna go back to your first theory, but I'm not doing that. No.
Yes.
Not go back to it as in I believe it, but go back to talking about it. We spent enough time talking about that. We don't need it anymore. So that's it. Another mystery solved. Another podcast episode down. I'd like to thank Vince again for being here. This is, I believe, your second time on the podcast.
I think third, but I guess officially second.
The second time, yeah, because we did record a different episode with you, but then all of the audio got corrupted for some reason, and I had to do that episode with someone else. So, but
shit.
Anything you're currently working on?
Yeah, right now with me being furloughed, I've been able to put more and more time into podcasting, and Personalized is like there. It's really going off this week, and yeah. So this Saturday, the new episode of Personalized with Surrey Hughes will be releasing on Saturday, and then following that next Saturday, we have some special prizes in store for Father's Day. And as a officially announced, I guess Unsolved Mysteries exclusive, tonight me and Abby Rose are going to be interviewing the team at DL Gaming Weekly, and we're doing a big crossover special tonight. And they can look out for that probably in July, maybe end of June if things are lucky.
All right, sounds good. Where can people find you online?
At King's Literature, and follow Personalized at PDPcast on all the social media. And King's Literature is also on all social media. Just follow me there, and
sounds good. Well, as usual, guys, if you have a mystery you want us to solve on the podcast, or if you want to send in death threats, or tell us how we're doing, or if you just want to drop a line, and maybe you're lonely and you just want somebody to chat with you. I can't guarantee that I'll have time for it, but I'll do my best. You can do that with a quick email to mysteriessolvedpodcast, all one word, at gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Unsolved Mysteries Solved, and on Twitter at UMS_podcast. That's M as in Michael S _podcast. And as usual, don't question us or you will be put down. I rule the mysteries corner of the podcast market with an iron fist, and I do not tolerate dissent. But other than that, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week with a brand new mystery, and once again, thanks to Vince for being here.
Hey.
Shut up, man. This is why I don't do these things in person.
Are you a fan of film, animation, true stories sometimes based off nothing more than hearsay and faulty human memory? Then hi, I'm Joss, from Off the Cutting Room Floor, a bite-sized film history podcast. In Off the Cutting Room Floor, I serve as your humble armchair expert and tell you some of cinema's most fascinating behind-the-scenes stories and legends. Featuring a cast of podcasters, Season 1 takes a close look at the development of the cult-hit musical, Little Shop of Horrors. Off the Cutting Room Floor, a bite-sized film history podcast, can be found on social at OTCRRoomPod, and Season 1, Little Shop of Horrors, can be found on your podcatcher of choice. Music is Always Slept So Soundly by Sarasue.